Hello Internet, and welcome to this tutorial series on Shopify Hydrogen SEO. And in today's video, our focus is on robots.txt file. What are they, and how do we add them to our Shopify Hydrogen storefront? Well, simply put, a robots.txt file, as you can see here, and this website is the Shopify Hydrogen demo store that we have been using in this tutorial series so far. And if I visit the page robots localhost 3000/robots.txt, we see the content of the file itself. Obviously, we're going to look at how this is created, but let's see first of all what it looks and what it contains. Basically, this first line here is telling, like I said, the robots.txt goal is to tell search engines what to crawl and what to not crawl from our website. Okay, and we see we have different blocks here. This first block, and then another block, and then another one, and then a few other blocks. Okay, and each of these blocks start with user engine. This first block is basically with this star here, or the wildcard symbol, is telling that these sets of rules apply to every single search engine on the internet, and that is every search engine that is polite and respects this. Okay, so and then this one here applies to the Google bot only, but that means that the set of rules above here will apply to every search engine, including the Google bot, but this specific set of rules will only apply to the Google bot and Google bot only. So let's see what is contained in it. So the first rule is disallow admin. Okay, we don't want the admin pages to be indexed. That makes perfect sense. Same thing for the cart page, the orders page, the checkout page, and so on. The account page, where the user sees his own account, like his order histories, his addresses and stuff like that. We don't want that to be indexed. Obviously, that's irrelevant for search engine purposes, and we don't want to expose our customer data to search engines either way. This is where this is becoming interesting. The collections page. Okay, here we see that we have this wildcard sort by wildcard. Okay, this is basically telling Google on other search engines that although I want the collections, this address, to be indexed, okay, I don't want, let's imagine we had a sort filter here that allows us to sort the collections by a particular order. Okay, in that case, you're basically displaying the same content, but you are not you're basically displaying the same content, but however, from Google point of view, any web page like this with the search parameter, okay, is considered a different page to the root page. Like it's a different page to this. Okay, so this page is different, this is another page, and this is yet another page. If you search like that, this is yet another page from Google point of view. Okay, so any page that has search parameters can basically generate an infinite amount of pages, because the user can search by different variations and so on. So usually the rule of thumb, and we will look at that when we in the video about best practices when it comes to search parameters. Okay, but the basic rule of thumb is, if the search filter is creating a different content as a result of searching your website, the content is going to be significantly different, then that could be a route that you want to allow in the robots.txt and also set as indexable, like we did for this particular page here in the previous video when we were defining the canonical. Okay, so one thing that the next thing you want to have a look at is the sort by. Same thing here is basically same sets of rules, same thing for the blocks and so on. All right, and then we come to the search. Okay, the search, you see, search without the trailing slash is disallowed, and with a trailing slash is allowed. Then what is that? Okay, so if you go back to the search page here, you see I told you that this is a page, and then if you search for something, it's a completely different page from search engines. Beyond that, if you add a slash, it's also a completely different page from search engine's perspective. Okay, so typically the best practice around this is to have a redirect or a middleware on your website that will look at incoming requests, and if the incoming request URL ends with a trailing slash, to just redirect the visitor to the page without the trailing slash, and that will allow you to consolidate your SEO powers into a single page. Because if Google or any other search engine sees for each of your pages a version with a trailing slash and a version without, from their point of view, these are two separate pages, and you may have your SEO power, your SEO split across different pages that are basically the same, right? So the way Shopify handles Shopify CLI, as it was scaffolded by Shopify Storefront, as it was scaffolded by the CLI, handles that is by disallowing the search page without the trailing slash and allowing the search page with the trailing slash. Okay, well, that's more or less the same thing, but I tend to prefer to do it like I explained to you, with the redirection, and that is that takes this thing out of the equation. And similarly to what we did, to what we saw on the collections page, we see that the Shopify CLI is basically disallowing every single page, every single search page, okay, from the crawler. So this page is never going to be, we're telling Google not to crawl this page basically, on any other page where there's a search parameter. And I must say that most of the time this is a good thing to do, okay? But sometimes you actually do want to crawl, want to allow search engine to crawl search pages, okay? And the reason why you may want, the reason why it's a good practice not to most of the time is because this can be a big waste of your crawling budget. Because if you think of it, every single keyword is a completely different keyword, right? And this is seen by search engines as different pages. So if you start telling search engines to crawl every single search that your visitor do on your website, that can waste your crawling budget indexing those pages instead of indexing the pages that you actually do care about, okay? So that's why most of the time it's a good practice not to index this, but sometimes, like I said before, it could be a good practice, could be good reasons to index, or at least some of them or all of them, okay? So that's, use your good judgment there. And finally, you have the sitemap, okay? The sitemap.xml. And again, like I explained before, this set of rules only apply to the Google bot here, and then this set of rules only apply to the Nudge both. This one here applies to Ahrefs both. Ahrefs is an SEO software, okay, but they also recently launched a search engine, okay, and similarly this final rule here applies to Ahrefs, another of Ahrefs both, and we have two here, one for Pinterest and one for MG12 both, okay. So now this is how it looks from the outside, but we are developers, so we're going to drill down to the code and see how this is created in the code by the Shopify CLI for us. So when we enter the robots.txt file, we notice that the route for that file is a bit different to the other routes, right? It has this square brackets around it, and basically this is because we need to add this .txt, right? If we don't add that, it's basically a way to, it's an escape hatch, right? So we want to be able to, we want our route to have the .txt in it, okay? And in order to do that, you need to add these square brackets around here before adding the .tsx, okay? And if we look at the content itself, we see that it contains a loader, okay, an error boundary, a utility function that is used inside the loader, as you can see here, and yet another utility function that is used by the previous utility function, and we're going to have a look at each of them individually. And finally, a GraphQL query, and which purpose is simply to fetch the shop ID, okay, the shop ID. And if we go back here, where is that used? Is here, right? So you remember that Shopify Hydrogen gives you the ability to customize pretty much everything about your store except the checkout page. The checkout page remains on the very familiar Shopify checkout page that we all know, and that's what we don't want to index to let the search engine crawl, okay? So now, if we, first of all, I have to remind, this is a good place, I think it's a good time to remind that Remix, the way remix routes work is that basically every route is a collocation of both your API, okay, and your component, right? This is your API, the loader. You can see your loader as the get endpoint, which consumes the data from your database or your CMS or your storefront, and then passes those data as with the use loader hook inside of your into your component, okay? So case on point, if for example here you see I'm exporting, if I visit this page, I don't see, this doesn't look much like a web page, right? But what happens if I export a component here? I create a dummy component and I export here, let's say component comp, let's call it comp, okay, and I visit the page. Well, let's see now it all of a sudden it now returns the HTML, okay? It no longer behaves as a REST endpoint, and by REST can return JSON or plain text, and in this case you see we want our robots.txt to return plain text because this is nothing like JSON, right? This is basically plain text, and hence the name even robots.txt, which means text, okay? And we have the cache. We're going to see what is the body, how it's created, okay? But we look at first, like here, the response that we're returning. Okay, we have the status code, which 200, content type, plain text. We'll probably look at that. And then the cache control. We want this to be cached for 24 hours. So 60 seconds, like 60 minutes times 60 minutes times 24 hours. That's basically a whole day, okay? Yeah, so that's what we want to do here. Now, if we look at the actual loader, okay, what is going on in there? We have obviously the very familiar request and context that we already have, and then we're making a query to get the shop ID, okay, and then from that shop ID and the URL, we are basically generating the robots.txt data, which is this whole content here that we have here. So let's get inside that function and see what's going on inside. If I go there, we see that the sitemap URL is basically the URL /sitemap.xml, which that's simple. And then yeah, it's very simple. I think you can understand this. I don't need to go too deep. We're just returning a big string, which is parameterized with different things accordingly, and that's basically it. Really, there's nothing more to this. I think I'll leave it here. I think you can read this example yourself and understand what's going on. But the biggest takeaway is that you have to be mindful of what you allow search engine to crawl and not crawl. And for the pages that have search filters, you have to use good judgment to decide whether or not to disallow or allow them. And that would be pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you found this useful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you need any help with anything related to Shopify Hydrogen, Shopify Plus, custom apps development, integrations, and anything else, visit our website on LiftedCommerce.com. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye bye.